Good day. It's Mike Walker from FlexRadio, VA3 Mike Whiskey. And today we're going to chat with Steve Kennedy from Future Systems in Australia, who's one of FlexRadio's dealers. Hey, Steve, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, man. How are you?
Good. It's mid-July. It's Monday evening for him, Monday morning for me. So we thought we'd get together and before Steve had to run out to the Christmas Islands tonight, I guess, or tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And can I pre-announce the fact you guys will be out there again for CQ Worldwide?
At Cocos Keeling Islands for CQ Worldwide. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool. So that'll be some good DX, especially from us from North America. So, Steve, welcome. Thanks for taking the time to join us. As I said, Steve is Future Systems is a Flex Radio dealer. We have great relationship with him. And first off, Steve, what got you into ham radio? You know, was it like the rest of us when we're about 14 and bored in high school?
Yeah, something like that. I was about 14 actually. I was involved in CB, and then I read about ham radio in a Dick Smith CB handbook, and got into amateur radio by the time I was about 15 or 16, and then moved into radio as a living from about 17 years onwards when I joined the Navy.
Oh, really? And were you in the Navy? Was it a radio thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Wouldn't join as anything else. Was a radio technician. Spent 11 years, and then left and went into commercial radio back in Perth.
Excellent. Yeah, and I guess in the commercial or your military, there was a fair bit of CW involved as well.
Yeah, a little bit. I was a technician, so I didn't do an awful lot of operating. I was on patrol boats, so we had the opportunity to do it, and I was one of the few radio techs in the squadron that could do CW, but predominantly I was a maintainer, not an operator.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your contributions. I know your countrymen love that as well at the time, and certainly to anybody worldwide that's involved in that. So how did you turn this into a business? Was there an aha moment, or was it just sort of you started helping out and it just sort of, your skill was needed?
I think for amateur radio, I'd moved the business back to Perth, which is kind of my home, and I got involved in amateur radio again. I'd been away from the hobby for a little while, and I had a supplier who had a lot of amateur equipment, so I thought, that might be fun to sell, and just started selling it in Perth. And I guess at that stage we were building up the communications business in Perth as well. We're a project delivery business, and then we were already a Codan dealer, and I was looking at software-defined radios in the amateur sector just out of my own interest, and was reading up on. I'd bought on a NAN Apache Labs, a NAN 1000, I think, and was playing with that. Wasn't really happy with it, and was looking at Flex, and then I thought, oh, they don't have representation in Australia, and sort of started talking to Flex. We sort of had a bit of a meeting of minds, I think, and I think in November or October 2016 we launched the product and in Australia, and we've been working on that ever since.
And it's been well accepted, has it? I know we've shipped you a
I
lot of
think
radios.
so, yeah. Look, if you look at things like the DX leaderboard, the WIA DX leaderboard, yeah, we've only sold 40 or 50 radios in Australia, I think, but there's 7 of us in the top 30 in the DX leaderboard, which gives you an indication of the sort of people that are using the radio and how successful they are with it. Last year, I think out of the top 3 in the DX leaderboard, 2 of them were Flex owners. Yeah, it's been.
Are you seeing the same? How do I want to word the same integration that people are doing with their station? The advantage of the Flex is it's land based, right? So we get rid of that peer to peer RS-232 half century old technology, and even actually I teach this in another class too. That that super het design in a receiver is over 100 years old, and we're still making new radios with the super het
Yep.
design.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can afford it.
And well, true, because a good super het, probably what 80% of the radio is taking care of all the products that mixing frequencies produces when you don't want them. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
and this is what's made and I call software defined a manufacturing technology. So it's really direct sampling that we deal with today. That makes it so powerful and clean. So
Mm.
good.
I,
So that's a
yeah,
lot of
there's
radios, by the way, you've shipped.
yeah. It's well, yeah. I had a goal to sell at least 1,000 into this market, so I've got a way to go yet. But
And you're still really
it's
active too in ham radio, which is sort of hard to do. It's hard to do your business and still sit around and
it,
play.
yeah, it can be. Although it does keep the passion going, and in this sector, you need to have the passion. If you
Mm.
don't have it, it's not much fun, So yeah, it's good.
Have you found your education or your school of hard knocks in ham radio has contributed to your commercial business?
I think where it really does give us an edge is we're one of the few companies in Australia who are specialists in HF radio. Um, HF is still quite a big thing in Australia in the commercial. And having the interest in and tech and experience in amateur radio has actually added quite a bit to our skill set for the commercial sector. So, um, I think it's actually helped there.
Excellent. So tell me about the store.
Well, we are traditionally we've been a project delivery business with an arm in amateur radio. We've always been friendly to hams in Perth, and but amateur radio was always the poor cousin. We've made a decision in the last couple of months to change that around and turn the amateur radio sector part of the business into our core business, and the project delivery side of the business is going to basically disappear, so that we can focus on the amateur radio side of things. So our office up until now has been quite appropriate for a project delivery business, big warehouse, workshop, offices and stuff like that, but no showroom. So now we're moving to a more retail centric location in Midland, there where I live, and it'll be a showroom, and people will be able to actually walk in and look and play with things as they walk in. So it'll be a significantly different experience for our Perth customers. Of course, our online customer base is not going to see much difference there, of course, but the Perth, it's something that's been missing in Perth for probably about 20 years now, I think.
Well, wonderful. I think you've done some training now. You actually have some events, I guess, where you invite customers to join. I know I was part of one of them. Is this something you do fairly often?
We've contacted most of the amateur radio clubs in Australia and offered to do a presentation on the use of the FlexRadio in a remote as a remote station, and also just trying to get interested in remote stations in general. So we've been doing that. It's been quite successful. We get a sale or two out of each one of those at least. And they're very well received. People find them interesting, find the subject interesting, and it's becoming more and more normal now. But the other side of training that I do myself is I'm involved in an organisation in Perth called Ham College, and our core business in the club is to train to run training courses for all standards of all categories of license here, and to bring people from knowing nothing to advanced license holders.
Wow. I wanted to ask you too, just in case we have people listening to this who are hams, but they want to bring their friend in to amateur radio, and I don't know Australia at all. So how does somebody who may be interested in in getting into ham radio today really get started? Is it still down the club route like most of the world?
I think clubs are certainly a big part of that. that's the easiest way to introduce yourself into other people in the hobby. We find at Ham College that a lot of the people that come into the college are coming in from the public, and most of them aren't actually already members of clubs, and they generally join a club near them once they've got their license. So we're we get a few people that go through the college that stick around. We've had quite a few that have ended up becoming instructors themselves, which is really good. So most of them are more qualified than I am.
Yeah, sometimes I think that's the case with me too. You mentioned remote, and we were running. Steve and I were talking about this earlier. We're running a survey here, and with mostly it's FlexRadio centric, but that's okay. And we've had people forward it on, but we are seeing we've had over 500 people respond to the survey over the last 3 months. And so talking about remote, we've done a survey here at Flex Radio, which we have over 500 respondents over the last few months, and over 70% are doing something with remote, and over 20% of that 70 is serious remote stuff where their station is 100% more than a 20-minute drive away. And if you've ever operated a repeater, you've lived that pain of forgetting to do something when you leave, or you have to reset something because it does become a job. And how can I turn on and off absolutely everything? And one of the things I wanted to stress too in remote, at least for me, what I do, and I have papers on it. You're welcome to reach out to me at Flex Radio. I keep a remote PC beside the radio that I can remote desktop to. And then I run all my digital stuff on the remote PC, but it also gives me a great debugging tool inside my own network, which, as you know, is something, Murphy was an optimist, right? If it's going to go wrong, it will. And it always does, usually at the worst time. So, but you're seeing, Australia's pretty vast, right? I don't know what your internet infrastructure is like, although I see a lot of people subscribing to Starlink. I watch Starlink pretty closely. And
our internet's okay. In the cities it's fine. In the country areas it's not so good, but Starlink is gaining a lot of popularity here.
It's probably a good price too, considering you have the same problems Canada has. Our internet in mostly 80% of the Canadian population lives very close to the U.S. border, and then after that, it's incredibly vast, and that's what makes it expensive to run too, because you've got to run that's a lot of poles, a lot of wire, a lot of maintenance,
and a low population.
Yeah, and yours is all around the coast, I guess, in where it is, but there's a whole lot of nothing as well. I haven't been there. I really do want to go, but.
Yeah, likewise. I'd love to see Canada for the same reason, I think. But I've got a remote station. Four of us actually pulled together and built our station out of bits that we all had, and that's only about a half an hour drive from where I live. I guess about 50 kilometers from here. It's in a semi-rural area, so it's on 5 acres, so it's quite 5 acres. So it's RF, very quiet, and it's in a nice sort of location. One of the four owns a property and lives on it, so if something really goes wrong, he can zip down and
reboot things. Yeah.
But we've pretty much got it to a point now where we very rarely have to do anything like that.
What radio are you using?
Oh, well, a Flex 6700.
A 6700
radio. We've got a 6600 in there now. I'm about to buy another one, which will go in there as well. We're using a Power Genius amplifier for the 6700, and we've got an ACOM A2000 or something for the 6600, but which we're still working on integration with. We're running a TH5 tri-bander for 10, 15, and 20, and a steerable full-size dipole for 40, and just a wire dipole at the moment for 80. But we got plans for quite a bit more a few
Steerable
more.
dipoles are on 40 are a great antenna if you can get one up. You'd be surprised at the difference it makes, and they're
Oh,
not
it's
expensive.
no, no.
Yeah.
I think we bought ours for about $300 and probably could have built it for less than that. But it was secondhand, but it works. It works a treat.
A friend of mine
Especially with 400 watts in
uses
it.
the driven element off his Explorer 14 because that's all he had room for, and just
Uh-huh.
stuck that up, and he was pretty happy how that worked out.
Yeah,
With the
yeah.
40-meter kit.
My first remote station was actually at the office, and we had a 2-story building with a tin roof. We put a Hustler 6BTV vertical up, and that worked so well on 80 and 40 meters. It wasn't funny. I'd love to do that again.
Yeah, and I wanted to mention to you, and if you're thinking of going down the remote path, you don't have to deposit a 6600 or a 6700. If you can find a used 6300, which you can get them at a good price, you're not giving up any features or functionality other than 2 slices, but you'll be pleased with the result. And
Yeah,
if you're on a really tight budget, that's a way to go, right? And it still runs all the current software, so.
yeah. I think it depends how many radios you're going to be running as well, because there's 4 of us. It's been a bit crowded at odd times, so we want the second radio there, and that's where the 6600 will come into its own, because it's got a little bit more pre-select filtering. And
yep, and then you can add multiflex if you need to, and good, excellent. Well, that's very cool. What have you got coming up? We talked about you're going to do CQ Worldwide. You're going to
there's
anything else you want to share about the business moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, we're an ICOM dealer as well.
Oh, that's okay. I don't.
But I mean, there's we found actually that I pushed back on it for a long time, because I'm a mad keen of flex aficionado, and the thought of selling another brand was just something I didn't think I'd be able to do, and but what I found is that there's a whole customer base there that different to have different needs to most of the flex users. So it actually hasn't been much of a what's the word? There hasn't been much of a clash at all, So, but so what that has done though is lifted the business to a point where it's actually making it a lot easier to deal in with flex as well. So it's not been a bad exercise. From a personal point of view, last year I was involved in the VK9 CE de-expedition, which was the first time a lot of us had done anything like that. Certainly for me, I did a 2-week stint on Christmas Island last year, but it was just in the evenings while I was working. And going back this year around the CQ Worldwide with 3 other guys who are all very motivated, and we're going there to play radio, whereas last time we went to Cocos, we went there to drink beer. And
how far away is that?
It's not sure how many kilometers. I think 2,500 kilometers offshore, or
so it's an all-day travel exercise.
Oh yeah, about a 5-hour flight, something like that. Yeah, it's about 4 hours to Christmas Island, So but this time around, we're going there with a bit of a mission. We'll be on air as much as we can. We're going to try and focus on North America as well, because that's actually quite difficult to work from Cocos and Christmas. So the last time we went to Cocos, I think we only worked about 300 North American stations. I want to turn that right around.
Well, hopefully with the current sunspot cycle, which I see is going great, and I could use Christmas on 6 meters, and that's a lot. That's you're almost antipodal to me, so which is
I that was something I did want to do this trip, but it's I'm there for 3 nights. One of them being the night I get there, but I would love to. I've only played on 6 meters for the first time ever, actually, this year. And I got on air. I heard a few stations on FT8 on 6 meters. Got on air, pointed the antenna north because we've got a 9-element log periodic on 6, and worked about 50 JAs, Chinese and Korean stations in about 20 minutes. Had to go fox and hound in the end.
Well, a lot of the JAs don't have very big antenna systems. I mean, some of them have amazing systems, right? But 80% of them are really restricted, right? They're in even balcony type setups and such.
Yep.
And now they're really passionate too. So it's if I get during CQ Worldwide, if I get a JA run on 15, I'm more of a sideband operator in CW. My CW is not good enough to run, but I'm a very good sideband for running, right? And I could just, okay, I need a break. I really have to go to the washroom type of thing. But you really can't get up and walk away because you lose your run frequency. But they'll really enhance my score, which is, and of course, our friends in the west coast of the U.S. going, oh yeah, we work JAs all the time, and I'm saying, yeah, and I don't know where all the Germans come from. We work either, so.
But yeah, I've been getting my favorite band is 10 meters, and
10's gorgeous when it's open.
Oh yeah, and it's open a lot more than people realize, So,
you bring up a great 10-meter story, or I'll bring up a great 10-meter story. I used to watch Whisper quite a bit, the Whisper beacons, and I contributed to it a lot on 160. And so what I would do here in Toronto was sit there and watch 10 meters to open on Whisper. So whispering is, if you're not familiar with WSPR Whisper, you can Google it, but it's an automated beaconing system and with a graphical map. And all of a sudden you'd see this path open up from, Canada to your part of the world. So for a week I watched this, and then it would be about 3 in my afternoon, and I think it was around the fall. So I'd take the beam and I'd point it to Australia, and the band's dead, and I could see the band's dead because I've got a full waterfall. And I'd get on like 28,400, and I would just start calling CQ, and without fail, some guy with like an ICOM 735 and a wire from somewhere in Australia would call me back, and he'd be like S9 for 4 or 5 minutes. We have a little rag chew, and another buddy would jump in, and then it was gone. But you're right, 10 is open a lot more than people think, and Whisper's the tool to see when. And I've done that when I'm running assisted in a contest, and go, okay, I'm going to run to 10 and just start screaming, and and it's
I normally just sit on FT8 and put out a few calls, and if I get lots of people coming back, then I go, well, this is boring, and move straight to SSB. And
well, that's like 6 meters lately for me, because I've been running a lot of FT8 working on grids, but because of not with the advantage of multiflex, I'll pull up the Maestro and just leave it on 5125, and then and I can in here in the cottage, it's in the living room if I'm doing digital stuff, so I can sort of enjoy what everybody else is doing and just sort of keep an eye at the grid tracker map, and then there's a QSO going on, actual or CW, so there are more bands than that. So Steve, anything else you want to bring forward? I'm going to show your email address. I'm sure that's one of the easiest ways to get hold of you.
Yep, that'll certainly get hold of me. That's probably the best one at the moment, particularly while we're transitioning between office and new showroom. And
I usually stress people to use sales aliases because they're usually watched by more than one person.
They are, they watch. Yeah, there's a couple of us that are on that. What else was there?
And we've got the webpage, so I found it by Googling, because you're not going to type that all in. So,
it's pretty easy to find. From that, you can also we're also on the dealers list on FlexRadio's website.
Correct.
Yep. So you can find us through there as well.
Well, excellent. Steve, I wanted to thank you for joining. Anything else you want to bring forward to the group? And whether you're New Ham, Old Ham in Australia, do you service any other countries as well?
We're interested in doing that. I would dearly love to look at the Indonesian market.
Okay.
It's probably something we'll look at over the next 6 to 12 months. I guess for me the big thing is if you want to um, if you want to get more familiar with not just the FlexRadio but remote station operation in general. We're always very happy to do presentations to clubs using Zoom. Zoom's actually a really good medium for demonstrating the FlexRadio, because you're seeing exactly the same as what I see from here. It's just a remote from a different location. That's all, and it's a really good, interesting way to have a look at the technology and even have a play with it yourselves. It's
a great teaching tool, the Flex platform, isn't it? It's a great mentoring tool. Yeah.
Yep. No two ways about it. So, yeah, and it's my favorite subject, so I never mind giving these presentations. A bit like you, Mike.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of fun doing them. And one of the benefits of COVID is we've now gotten to what we knew we could do, but now everybody sort of had to cross the line and do remote everything. So I love doing it. I get some great questions. And then it's just spun off, and there's so many talks going on now that we're getting the information. I don't know how we did stuff when we were in high school. I mean, we should have blown up a lot more things or been in more maybe we were in trouble, but it's a geeky techie guy, and I do this for myself. Okay, how many of you guys that have been licensed since the 70s or more were also the projectionist in high school, and 80% of them put up their hand, or they worked in theater on the electric, on lighting or sound, and pretty funny.
I had my first rig was a 10-meter a converted CB on 10 meters.
Perfect.
Loaned to me actually, and in the early 80s was still that peak of that really cool sunspot cycle. Remember that one at the end of the 70s?
I remember it well because I was traveling for work, IBM then, and I had a HR 2510 and a Larson 10-meter whip, and I'd put it in the rental car.
Yeah, I had mine on a push bike.
I
worked all continents for my push bike. Helical in the front, battery in the carry, in one of these little carry things on the handlebars.
Well, you bring up a good point too, because when you and I are young, I'm sure your friends who were probably way older than you were and probably disturbed your parents to no end. Don't you have normal friends type of thing? But I have given away so much of my older equipment that I'm not, just to get people on the air and say either. And this was done to me 1,000 years ago, and said, here, you can take it, use it. You can't sell it. Please give it to someone else when you're done with it. And I urge all of us old farts to do that, because I'm sure there's stuff on the rack somewhere you're not using. You don't need the $50 it's going to generate. You really don't. Just get it on the air somehow.
Yeah. So no, I agree. I completely agree.
Anyway. Perfect. Well, Steve, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to join us. Today it's about mid-July in 2022. I always try to put a date stamp on this, but it's a great time to meet you in one-on-one, because we haven't had a chance to do that. And if you need some help in that part of the world, you're looking for some equipment, and preferably FlexRadio equipment, you can reach out to Steve and the rest of the people there at sales@futuresystems.com.au. So 73.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Take care.
Okay, see ya.